pass protection is number one for me. You remember Lamar's drop backs last year and how much depth he would get and how much space he would create and how much time he would buy. I do think that the pressure to some degree is psychologically chipped away at his confidence. He's not going to say it out loud. But when I look at the way that he has moved around in the pocket and some of the decisions that he's made, and also just the lack of finding work. Like I'm looking at Voorhees, I'm looking at Faalele. They're not finding work. They're just kind of standing around like they're looking at the sunset sometimes. I just don't know what they're doing. And Lamar has clearly not taken off at all. Like I am concerned. Like if we're going to get to where we want to get to, we need to see a version of Lamar that's a lot closer to last year than what we've seen this year. Like I'm starting to wonder if it's more than if it's physical and psychological, right? Is he not healthy? And does he not trust the offensive line to hold up? And so he kind of finds himself wondering, as he's looking downfield, like, do I have enough time to do the things that I want to do? And then when it comes to the physical part of it, like, why has he not used his legs? Like I expected him to kind of start. He showed a little bit of zone read early in the game against Cleveland, and he looked pretty good. Like he didn't outrun Schlesinger, and he kind of said, you know what, let's live to fight another day. Like I understand that part of it, but to never really take off beyond that again, I think that ties back to the offensive line. So the offensive line is my first concern. Lamar's health is my second concern. The red zone is my third concern. The lack of creativity is my fourth concern. And all those things are tied together. You know what I mean? I'm starting to get Giro end of the road vibes when right before Giro got shipped out for Munkin. I'm starting to get vibes like that about the predictability of this offense and the lack of evolution to some degree. And part of it might be that the offensive line just isn't that good. And that's really the bigger issue.
I was going to say, like, that's the difficult balance that you kind of like weigh this whole thing in, is that you are as good as in this case, as weak as your personnel is.
Yeah.
And if you're Todd, man, you go back to Minnesota, right? While they struggled full body of work in short yardage situations, he dialed up as much creativity as he possibly could. He gave Pat Ricard his first carry in 3 years. He went direct snap to Mark Andrews and lined Lamar up as a running back, which went for a first down. And then, of course, we all know what was the difference on Sunday in Cleveland on a beautifully executed play that had a bunch of different layers to it and ended with Mark finding the end zone. So let's dig in more to Lamar. I agree with you on the one. I actually have one of the zone read plays here in my notes from the first quarter where he went for 13. But even on that game, while he looked healthier on that run, you're still thinking to yourself, man, he just doesn't fully look like the Lamar that we've all grown accustomed to watching over 8 years. And you do kind of wonder, and I think you were getting at this, how do you balance the perceived lack of belief or lack of confidence in the guys up front with straight up health? This is a player that's missed multiple games, as we know, with a hamstring. He popped up on the injury report last week with a knee, and he's taken at least 2 of the biggest hits of his career, one that you chronicled back in week 1 at Oliver, and then one in Minnesota in Dallas Turner, who was flagged for unnecessary roughness. So all of that, it's tough to try and gauge how that should be divvied up.
Yeah, and we're just not going to know. We're not going to know. Maybe at the end of the season there'll be some things that'll be uncovered. But the bottom line is, for me, is that the way that the Ravens beat the Steelers last year is they went all in on the run, right? Remember Derrick Henry and Lamar, it was zone read all day. They knew the Steelers couldn't stop that. If that's the way they need to beat the Steelers, are they going to go 7-step drop and beat the Steelers? I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen, because we see what the Steelers are. They're a big play defense. They're not great, but what they do is they cause havoc and they force you into mistake and they force turnovers. What's the number one statistic in determining outcomes of games? It's turnovers, right? That's what Steelers do really well. They're not intimidating in regard to like they're just going to beat you up and kick your ass and steal your lunch. That's not what they are right now. They are a havoc, veteran laden. We're going to force you to make mistakes. We're going to force you to go the long route to score And somewhere along the way, we're going to knock a ball out. We're going to get a sack fumble. We're going to recover it. We're going to get the ball back to our offense, who's just okay. The Steelers, and remember, my philosophy, and actually this is not just my philosophy, this is a fact. The NFL is about who makes the least number of mistakes, not who makes the most big plays, who makes the least number of mistakes. And I think sometimes we get so hyper-focused and we have a micro analysis of our own team. We don't realize that teams across the NFL are dealing with the same thing. The teams that make the most mistakes lose the games. This is an NFL-wide, this is a football-wide thing from Pop Warner all the way through the NFL, right? So in regard to Lamar and the Ravens really reaching their full capability and reaching their ceiling, Lamar has to be the best version of himself. I don't think Lamar, as a pure pocket passer only, based on this offensive line, can go further than maybe the divisional round like this. Just being honest, like, we want them to win a Super Bowl. I think Lamar has to be in his full bag, like zone read, buying time, extending plays, high throws to the back pylon, like all the things that we know that he can do with the talent that he has around him. If we're just going to be doing what we're doing now, this gets us to a certain point. But, I think that the Ravens have always been really good because they've been more talented. They've been the Ferrari of the league. And what I mean by that is that the season has a lot of straightaways, and the terrain is pretty predictable because you see the schedule. But when you get to the playoffs, the terrain changes. And a Ferrari doesn't win in January. You need a Jeep Grand Cherokee or a Yukon or a Tahoe, right? And I think the Ravens could be a Yukon or a Tahoe. It's not as sexy, but morphing into that type of mentality and that type of resilience, the type of stuff that they've learned through these tough spells, is what they might require psychologically to win the games that they've lost against the Buffaloes and the Kansas Cities. It might not be as pretty, but you know what? It might be more effective. And Kyle Hamilton talks about that scar tissue. And I believe that scar tissue is going to pay dividends. I believe that psychological makeup. The Ravens aren't going to fall into the Travis Kelce psychological warfare game that caused them, in my opinion, to lose the AFC Championship game before it started, in my opinion, right? I think that these tough lessons, this acrimony from the fandom, this acrimony from pundits, I do think it builds a callus. I do believe that scar tissue is beneficial, but you got to get there. And at some point, game to game is about the guys on the field. But I think the long-term goal, where you want to get to, is really psychological, right? It's about leaning on the guys in the locker room. And I think they're building that up. And this is a completely different way. Like, think about this for a minute. They were down in the fourth quarter. They were down double digits to Cleveland, and they won the game. Against Minnesota, against Chicago, and against Cleveland, they were down in the second half, and they won the game. This is the complete opposite of what they've been doing in the past. They get big leads and they'd hold on, or they get big leads and blow teams out. They're actually down and finding ways to win games, which to me is a different way of traversing the mountain path that they normally do. I know I threw a lot of stuff in there, but you kind of hear where I'm going with this. I'm okay with this because the other way wasn't working, right? If we can get the psychological lessons and build up the resilience that we need, and then hopefully this offensive line can kind of figure it out as they go. Because once again, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And if Lamar can get healthier and we can get back to some of that zone read stuff, I think everything that we need is here. Can we tap into it and reach it? That's the question. Those are my concerns. I don't know the answer to that, but I still stand on business. Like what I said to you when they were 1-5 hasn't changed. I'm not wavering at all. They're going to be a playoff team. How far they go is TBD.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And along the lines of what they're going to need, if this sort of imperfect, every team's imperfect, but some of these inconsistencies or deficiencies, particularly up and down the offensive line, if those continue to persist, what are they going to need in January? They're going to need this defense who's been finding turnovers in bunches now for weeks to do what they haven't in the month of January throughout the Lamar era, and that's turn the football over. They have not been able to do that successfully, which has only ratcheted up the margin for error when it comes to Lamar. And so if there is something piggybacking off of what you're getting at in terms of what's been encouraging or an encouraging angle to take in recent weeks, is that they haven't asked a lot from Lamar. They've played risk-free from an offensive standpoint, and it's been pretty vanilla, and yet they're winners of 4 in a row. They're breathing new life, and the entire season is about to reset with AFC North football coming up. You mentioned the likes of New England, who's won 8 straight games under Vrabel. You've got Green Bay in a frozen tundra 2 days after Christmas. You got to go out to Lambeau. And like you mentioned, maybe the most compelling of them all, assuming that Rodgers is going to be under center for him, is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who he's going to try and play. You already know he's going to try and play with that. Yeah. One, that it's he's 41 years old. 2, he's broken his collarbone. He's played through injuries before, maybe not the collarbone, but other injuries, and it's his non-throwing hand. So I'm still expecting, like you kind of referenced a minute ago, for those Pittsburgh Ravens games to be coin flips, even though I get it. It was anything but in the wild card round last January.
Yeah, no, I think Pittsburgh's going to be the toughest matchup. I believe that. Green Bay hasn't seen has Lamar played Green Bay? I mean, if he did, it was really early in his career. It might have been like his second year, or maybe I don't remember if Lamar playing Green Bay, to be honest. Maybe somebody could look it up. I mean, it's been a while, and we know what Lamar does to teams that haven't seen him. But what version of Lamar is Green Bay going to get? I'm not sure, right? The other thing is that I think that New England coming here, this to me reminds me of Buffalo coming here last year. And I remember Tom Brady in New England coming here and getting stomped. You know what I mean? And everybody had New England in that game. So I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but I feel really good about the Green Bay and New England matchup. My biggest concerns, like straight up, full transparency, I don't care who Cincinnati has at quarterback. They're going to be a problem. I don't care who the Pittsburgh Steelers have at quarterback. They're going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Those 4 games for me are, you got to win 3 out of 4. You got to win 3 out of 4 of those. And Bobby, I've never said they're going to win every game. I said they're going to be 10-7. I've been saying it the whole time. They're going to be 10-7. Is that good enough to win the AFC North? I think it will be. At the very least, I don't believe in Jacksonville. I don't believe in the Chargers. I'm not convinced about either one of those teams. I don't know about Kansas City, and I damn sure don't know about Houston. So there has never been a more uncertain parity-driven league than this year. I think it's all up in the air, and I think it sets up perfect for the Ravens. I think that they've come back to reality in regard to how the national narrative is gone now. They're being really quiet, and I told you, you've got to earn the right to pump your chest out, right? You got to earn that right, and not to belabor the point, but you interpreted it as they're just done psychologically cooked, where I think I interpret it for what it is that, like, hey, we haven't played well. There's nothing for us to say. We just got to go out there and play well. But you see the bravado kind of coming back a little bit. They're believing in themselves. KVN, Agent Zero, as you like to say, Marlon, Lamar, the guys, even Coach Harbaugh. And I'll say this. I posted in the chat after Coach Harbaugh addressed Jay-Z the other day. 90% of it, honestly, I didn't have a problem with. The issue that I took with his response was that's not even a hard answer part of it. That kind of, the way he said that was the only part. If he had not said that and he just kept it even keel, I wouldn't have had an issue, because I'm a former player, and you guys need to hear how we get spoken to in meetings. You guys need to hear how we talk to each other on a sideline. What you guys think is offensive is fucking nothing, dude. It is absolutely nothing. You guys would lose your minds. And let me tell you this too. None of you are going to go into a meeting and be at one winning drive and stand up and say, no, Coach Harbaugh, like, that's bullshit. No, none of you are doing that. I promise you. That is below the decorum of that room, and that is unacceptable. And if you care about your job, you're not going to do that either. Could you imagine talking to your boss? Because if you're there, you're working. Like, you're not there hanging out as a fan. The mindset of the fan, which I respect. As a fan, you say whatever you want. But when you're working for the Baltimore Sun or the New York Post, or you pick whatever news outlet or newspaper, you're not in there talking like a fan, being disrespectful, because you won't have a job. Like, let's just be real, right? I want to make that point clear as well.
I know you were watching the live the other night when Rave Kingdom came on, and
yeah,
I threw out the
tripping.
scenario of the grocery shop, right? The grocery mart interaction scenario, setting up the scene of a Fa'alele interaction, and that whole thing was just, Rave,
well, I mean, Bobby, this is the thing, Bobby. What fans don't realize is that we know every mistake that we've ever made. We know about mistakes that you don't even know about. Yeah. Do you think nobody to this player, do you think they need you? Playing in the NFL is a highly technical job, right? There's a lot of highly technical jobs out there, right? This is not a restaurant. I'm not cooking your food. I'm not a politician. I'm not representing your district. If I was cooking your food, or if I was a politician, you have every right to approach me on the street and say what you want. Because if I'm not cooking your food right and I'm not representing you as a politician appropriately, hey, that's what I'm there for. But in regard to being a fan, there are so many things in regard to how a game is played and the amount of time that's put into critiquing and analyzing film. We know everything already. Like, you approaching me on the street is inappropriate, talking about my job. And if I did it to you, you wouldn't appreciate it either. So I just think that, once again, and I'm sure some people don't like what I'm saying. It's okay. I don't give a damn if they don't like it or not. The bottom line is there's a level of respect and appropriateness when it comes to certain things. And when we're sitting here talking, like, we can say whatever we want here in the chat, you know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is that every mistake that a player makes, they already know about. So it's not like you need to say something to them about it. Nobody wants to make a mistake, right? Guys are trying to fix it. And that goes for Daniel Falele as well. I think he knows, hence the, inability or the lack of access to him, right? Like, they've kind of been protecting him a little bit. So he's aware. He knows he's not playing well. And I'm sure he's doing his best to fix it. And guess what? As a fan, it's not good enough. And that's also true.
Let's get you out of here on this. And it's exactly that. Do you, if you're a betting man, think a change is made between, let's call it, now and the stretch that begins on Thanksgiving night with one or multiple members? And it's probably only going to be one. How can you make multiple changes to the offensive line given what you have in the stable? But will there be a change made between now and Thanksgiving night?
Oh, man. When Coach Harbaugh says that the best 5 linemen are playing, I believe that. We may not like it, and there's a lot of different things you can say about that in regard to why didn't you have, bring different guys in free agency? Why wasn't there more competition? Why didn't you draft better play? You can say all those things, but let's just set that aside for a minute. If these are the best 5, these are the best 5. They're evaluating these guys off after every game and in practice every day. Like, you'd be shocked at the detail of analysis that goes into evaluating. Like, that's what the NFL is when it comes to coaches and front office. It's all evaluation, right? Psychological and physical evaluation. Do I think Emery deserves a chance to play some right guard? I absolutely do think he deserves a chance. If he's going to get a chance, it's going to be against the Jets, because this is a game that the Ravens should win by 14 points or more, in my opinion. And if you want to see what he can do, this is the game that you should see it in. Now, they're not going to say that, because that would be inappropriate and disrespectful to the Jets. And the last thing you want to do is give any team billboard material because you're being disrespectful. As you guys can see, if anything, even though it's not always honest praise, the NFL is going to err on the side of being gracious than derogatory. We know this. So my hope is that Emery gets a chance to play some right guard. Do I think there's going to be a change? There will only be a change if he gets a shot and he plays better than Daniel. And honestly, I don't know if that's going to even happen. So I don't avoid giving you answers, but if you force me, I'm going to say probably not.